Hi everyone, it's Angela Giles Klocke with scarsandtiaras.com, soon to be healingfromabuse.com. And I really wanted to skip this week. I am feeling full of some emotions that I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to even just want to sit down and do this. And there's a lot going on in our country and in America. So if you're watching this from a different place, you probably see that there's a lot going on, probably more than we do sometimes as Americans. We tune out, and I personally work in such an area that sometimes I do tune out the rest of the world because I need to, because I just don't have space. I don't have enough space for all of everything that's going on in the world. And so I was feeling this anger about some of the things that are going on, and I had been thinking about anger throughout this week. I've been thinking about the emotions that we feel as survivors and as victims. And a lot of times I talk about that happy place and this positive energies that we need to be operating in so that we're not so consistently beating ourselves up or just not healing. But I was thinking about anger in that way of effective anger. And so often we avoid anger. We don't want to talk about anger because anger has such a negative connotation to it. And if you're spiritual at all, you're told, to stay away from anger sometimes, or do not sin in anger, or in the world itself, anger can be looked down upon unless you're using it, to be funny or something like that. But I really wanted to just talk about how anger itself can really propel you forward, whether it be in action or in healing, because sometimes as survivors and victims, the anger that we have comes from a different place along the journey. And so sometimes the initial anger that we have is at someone or at a situation that we can't control, and it's a different kind of anger, and not always a healthy anger, in that sometimes we might lash out in that anger and hurt other people or hurt ourselves. And this other kind of anger for me is this anger at injustice, anger at the things that are wrong, that are being done wrong to others, that have been done wrong to us. And maybe the person who abused you has never seen the inside of a jail cell, or you were never able to tell, and so that person is still out there just living a happy-go-lucky life, and you feel like you're the one suffering. Or the anger that you have, that regardless of how far along you've come in your healing, you can't just go out and stop somebody else from taking those same steps because they need to do their own thing. But you're thinking to yourself, I know what this feels like, so just listen to me. And then you get angry because they don't listen to you and they won't take your advice, and they go forward and then they get hurt, and then you feel angry at the situation and at the abuser and even at the victim sometimes because you tried to stop, and then you get angry at yourself because you're thinking, I didn't do enough. So there's so many different levels of anger. And I just want us to embrace some of those pieces of anger, because sometimes we really didn't do enough to reach out and stop somebody from making some decisions. And I mean that in the way of, we can't control anybody, we can't save anybody, but maybe we can do more to stand in the gap for them. Maybe we can do more to be available to them or to be a voice for them. And sometimes that anger is toward the whole situation of abuse, and how do we make it stop, and what do we do? And it's that anger that I want to talk about, because so many people come to me and they say, this can't go on. We cannot keep doing this. We cannot keep allowing this to go on. And I absolutely agree. So how do you operate from that place of anger, of injustice, to say, I'm not going to let this go on. I am going to stand up. I'm going to speak. I'm going to say this cannot go on. And how do you mold that anger into productive behavior, into being able to speak out, into being able to walk alongside somebody in a way that is not so damaging? How do you do that? And this is something I want to explore, because I don't know all of those pieces to that. And I tell you repeatedly, I'm not a counselor, so I'm not trained in any of all of those pieces, of those tools that counselors have and all the schooling that they do to really dig down deep. But I have me, and I have my experience, and I have my thoughts, and I feel pretty self-aware and then just situationally aware of life in general. And I see how the different pieces of anger can be used constructively or to damage. And I just want to have a conversation about how we can start to use those pieces of our broken past, those places where we're hurt and damaged, and it brings up that anger, where we can turn that into a fight worth fighting, a battle worth getting into. How do we advocate for ourselves and for others? And how do we use that anger to turn it into that passion that says, I will not let this go on. I will not let that woman stand alone. I will not let that man sit in silence because he's an abused man. Whatever the case may be, how do we use that anger and step into it in a good, healthy way? Because by God, we got to get angry about some things, or else we sit back apathetic, don't care, don't get involved, putting our head down. And look, I get it. I get that there are places where we cannot get involved. We cannot jump into every fight. But if this is your fight, as this is my fight, let's get angry together, and let's get in there and let's have a conversation about that. Because our anger can thrive in a good way instead of seething and simmering and boiling over in a negative way, as so happens for so many people. There's healing in learning how to use what we've been through in a good, healthy, passionate way. And there is more damage to be done if we don't know how to channel some of that and how to turn that into something new. Those are my thoughts and my opinions. Enter this conversation with me, please, please, please. I just want to talk about it. I do have a new private group on Facebook, and you have to have approval to get in. Contact me if you'd like to know more information about that. I'm at angelagilesklocke@gmail.com. And of course, you can find me on the website, healingfromabuse.com, which will soon be its own standalone, but right now redirects to scarsandtiaras.com. And let's just have a conversation, friends. We can do this. We can start to make a difference. We can use that anger. What was meant for bad will be meant for good. We will turn it into something better. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, let's just rise up. Rise up, friends. We got this. Have a great week.